parents take sister on vacation instead of later on. She ruined family vacation and got arrested. Now my parents finally realize her true colors. My parents decided to take my younger sister on vacation, without me. It's been a recurring theme over the years. They plan trips, and somehow, I end up left out, especially when it comes to her. And this time, it turned out to be a disaster. They went ahead with the trip, leaving me behind, and what happened next was beyond anything I could have predicted. Lisa, my sister, managed to ruin the entire family vacation and, somehow, got herself arrested during the chaos. Only after this did my parents finally start to see her for who she truly is. I'm 23, and I have a younger sister, Lisa, who's 18. Honestly, I've come to believe she might be the embodiment of evil on earth. For years, I've tried to convince my parents that there's more to her than just childhood mischief, that beneath her charming facade lurks a manipulative, malicious streak. But they refused to see it. They dismissed my concerns, brushing them off as jealousy or misunderstanding, until now. Let me give some background. Our relationship has always been complicated, mainly because of Lisa. She's their favorite, a fact I've always known but struggled to accept. My mother suffered a miscarriage a few years before Lisa was born, an event that left a deep scar. When Lisa arrived, she was seen as their miracle, a beacon of hope, a symbol of renewal after tragedy. They showered her with love, attention, and affection from day one, turning her into the center of our universe. She was the princess, the star, the one who always got her way. As a kid, I loved her dearly. I genuinely did. But as I grew older, I started noticing something disturbing. Lisa had an uncanny talent for manipulation. She knew exactly how to twist stories, how to play the innocent victim, how to turn every situation to her advantage. And she was a master at playing the long game. No one else seemed to see through her, but I began to realize her tricks, her little manipulations, were more than just childhood pranks. One vivid example stays with me. It was my birthday, and I received a stunning antique pocket watch from our grandparents. My grandmother told me it was a family heirloom, something priceless, passed down through generations. I was over the moon. It was a gift I treasured, and I kept it safe. That night, Lisa, jealous and resentful, kept asking me to share it. I refused. After all, it was a gift just for me. But Lisa wasn't done. She tried to persuade our parents, but since it was a family heirloom, they couldn't really intervene. That same night, I was terrified of spiders, an irrational fear I'd had since childhood, and Lisa, knowing this, took advantage of it. She secretly placed a house spider inside my pillowcase, ensuring I'd find it when I went to bed. That night, I woke up screaming, feeling the horrifying sensation of a spider crawling over my skin. My parents rushed in, alarmed, but Lisa acted innocent, surprised and caring. Later, in private, she admitted with a creepy grin that she put the spider there to teach me a lesson. No remorse. Just that unsettling, calculating smile. Her cruelty didn't stop there. I remember once having a crush on a classmate named Mark. I finally gathered the courage to invite him over for a movie night, excited, nervous, dressed carefully to impress him. But the moment Mark arrived, Lisa deliberately spilled a glass of juice all over my dress, then burst out laughing at my embarrassment. I was mortified. I had to change clothes in front of him, trying to hide my discomfort. That wasn't enough for her. While we were watching the movie, Lisa began to tell Mark embarrassing stories from my childhood, making me feel small and humiliated. She didn't leave us alone for a moment. When Mark was about to leave, she smirked and casually told him he could do much better than me. Mark, who'd been visibly uncomfortable, hurried out, leaving me there, feeling devastated. Over the years, I kept raising these issues with my parents, telling them about Lisa's antics, her manipulations, her cruelty. But they always dismissed me, saying she was just a young girl, naive and innocent. They refused to see her for what she truly was. Instead, they told me I was jealous or that I was overreacting. They believed in her innocence so blindly that they ignored the red flags. Whenever I tried to point out her behavior, I was met with dismissiveness or outright accusations that I was the troublemaker. It was as if they couldn't, or wouldn't, see her for the manipulative, malicious person she was developing into. Because of this favoritism, I started feeling more like an outsider in my own family. I focused on my studies, worked hard, and managed to get into a good college in San Francisco. Moving out was a relief, my chance at a fresh start and a better life. College was a new world for me, where I could breathe, grow, and finally distance myself from the chaos at home. But every visit back was uncomfortable. Lisa, now 18, made her resentment clear. She would ignore me, refuse to sit next to me at dinner, and actively undermine my presence. She'd avoid talking to me, and when I tried to engage her, she'd dismiss me with a sneer or an eye roll. She even damaged some of my belongings, pretending she needed to borrow things, only to break or lose them. My parents, oblivious or maybe just willfully blind, told me to get along with her, to be the bigger person. I grew tired of the constant tension, so I started avoiding home during breaks. I'd make excuses, visiting friends, staying with relatives, to escape the hostility. When Lisa finished high school, her grades weren't enough for college, so she enrolled in community college and stayed at home. She never had to leave the nest, never had to face independence or the world outside our parents' house. Meanwhile, I built my own life in San Francisco, working at a multinational corporation, enjoying my work, and keeping my distance emotionally from the chaos at home. I rarely stay in touch with my parents, and I have no contact with Lisa at all anymore. Until recently. Because just a few months ago, everything changed. My father suffered a near-fatal heart attack. It was a terrifying experience, but by some miracle, he survived. He was rushed to the hospital, and I flew back immediately, dropping everything to be there for them. The doctors prescribed a strict regimen of medications, and strongly urged my dad to start exercising. Since his discharge, he's been determined to spend more time with us, to make the most of his second chance at life. He kept telling me how lucky he felt, how grateful he was to still be here. I stayed a few days at home. My job allows remote work, so it's not a problem. But I noticed something strange. Lisa was deeply agitated that I was there. She kept her distance, avoided eye contact, and behaved as if I was an intruder. I tried my best to keep the peace, not wanting to start new conflicts after all we'd been through. One morning, after the heart attack, during breakfast, Dad suggested we all go on a family vacation, something we hadn't done in years. I hesitated but decided it was important for Dad. I knew how much he wanted to reconnect, and I agreed. Lisa wasn't thrilled, she grumbled but went along. My father made all the arrangements, flights, hotels, everything. I had planned my leave from work, told my colleagues I'd be offline, and looked forward to some quality time with my family. But at the airport, I was stunned to find my flight ticket had been cancelled. I exchanged confused looks with Dad, who insisted he'd paid for it. We checked further. It turned out that my ticket, the one with my name, had been mysteriously cancelled. And the culprit? Lisa. It was her, sitting there with that sly, smug smile, the one she always wore when she'd pulled her manipulative tricks. She'd cancelled my ticket from Dad's computer, probably while he wasn't paying attention. I was furious. I started yelling at her, pointing out that she was the one behind it. She never wanted me to come on this trip. But she just kept smirking, as if proud of her power. My mother, hearing my outburst, dismissed my claims. She told me Lisa would never do something like that and insisted I was just jealous. She said the cancellation was an accident, maybe an airline mistake. My father tried to justify it, saying I shouldn't blame Lisa. I was utterly frustrated. How could they not see that their miracle daughter was capable of such deception? At that point, there was nothing I could do. My ticket was cancelled, and no other flights were available that day. I could try to catch a flight the next day, but I didn't want to leave alone, especially after everything. This was supposed to be a family trip. I was dreading sharing a room with Lisa again. And I couldn't help but wonder what other schemes she might have in store to ruin the trip. My dad hesitated at first, suggesting they could go home and plan a new trip later. But then he mentioned how long it had been since he'd taken a vacation. He seemed desperate for that break. My mom agreed, saying I travel a lot for work, so I wouldn't miss much if I stayed behind. Their comments felt like a subtle pressure, like they wanted me to let them go without me. So, I told them they could continue without me. They agreed without hesitation, and I watched as they headed off, leaving me standing there alone at the airport. I chose to return to San Francisco. I didn't want to spend another day in our family house, feeling like an outsider. I focused on making the best of my break, reconnecting with old friends, immersing myself in books, and trying to forget the chaos. During their trip, my parents would call occasionally. I could see from their voices and their body language that they were enjoying themselves. It was like my absence didn't matter, like I was invisible to them. And honestly, part of me felt relieved. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling of being excluded, of being the one left behind while everyone else enjoyed the trip I was supposed to be part of. It was a painful reminder of how favoritism had always shaped our family. I kept hoping that, somehow, they'd finally see Lisa for who she really was. And, surprisingly, I think my wish was starting to come true. Because just a few days into their vacation, I woke up to a flood of missed calls from my mom. She sounded frantic, worried that something had happened to Dad. I called her back immediately. She was distraught. She explained that they discovered something alarming. Dad's vital medications for his heart were disappearing, one by one, day after day. It was terrifying. Dad's health was fragile, and missing his meds could be deadly. They searched their hotel room frantically but came up empty. My mom then went next door to Lisa's hotel room, her own daughter's room, and what she found chilled her to the bone. All the missing pills had been carefully hidden inside Lisa's bedside table. It was a shocking revelation. My mother called my father, who rushed in and confirmed that all the medications he'd been missing had been stored there. That was the moment when everything changed. My parents realized their miracle daughter, the one they always saw as perfect, had been actively risking Dad's health. She had stolen his medicines, deliberately jeopardizing his life. My mom's voice trembled as she asked whether they should confront Lisa. I told her, not yet. Wait until we're home. Gather your thoughts, your evidence, and then confront her. Don't do it now. She's a master manipulator. She'll find a way to dodge responsibility. But I sensed that, somehow, they had already taken action. Because later that night, I received a phone call from my dad. His voice was unsteady, trembling with guilt and frustration. He told me Lisa was in jail. I was stunned. I asked what had happened. He explained that during their questioning about the medications, Lisa had erupted into a full-blown tantrum. She threw objects, shouted insults, and directed her rage mainly at him. She accused him of booking the ticket for me, and she yelled that he should have never allowed me to go on their family vacation. She threatened them, said that if they continued to have a relationship with me, she would teach them a lesson they'd never forget. Her rage boiled over. The situation escalated rapidly, and finally someone from the hotel called the police. When officers arrived, Lisa refused to calm down. She insulted them, shouted at them, and, as a result, she was taken into custody. She was released after 24 hours. But my parents couldn't do anything at that moment. They desperately tried to reschedule their flight, but then they discovered something even worse. Her theft extended beyond medications. Their passports and wallets, everything they needed to leave the country, were missing. Lisa had hidden or discarded them. They were stranded abroad, completely powerless. For the first time, my parents saw her for what she truly was. My mother, who had defended Lisa for all these years, was now begging me for help. She was overwhelmed, shocked, and filled with guilt. She realized her angelic daughter was a manipulative, dangerous person. I told them not to worry. I offered to send money via Western Union to help them get back home. But first, they had to find their passports. I was sure Lisa hadn't thrown them away, they were hidden somewhere just out of sight. Finally, my parents saw that I had been honest about her all along. They were grateful, and they apologized. More than that, they begged for forgiveness. They understood now why I'd been so wary all these years. They admitted their favoritism and recognized how it had blinded them to Lisa's true nature. While a part of me still struggles to forgive, I can't deny that this was a turning point. It was the first time they truly acknowledged the pain I'd endured because of Lisa's actions. Update 1. Every day, my parents call me with updates. And I've grown more anxious about their situation. After Lisa was released from jail, the very next day, my parents threatened her again. They demanded she return their passports or they'd call the authorities once more. Faced with no other option, Lisa finally told them where she'd hidden their passports. When they returned home, my parents confronted Lisa, making it clear she had to gather her belongings and leave. It was obvious, they'd reached the breaking point. The truth was finally out. She was manipulative, dangerous, and had been actively risking their health, jeopardizing my father's life by stealing his medicines repeatedly. That confrontation turned into another heated argument. Lisa, furious, started yelling at them. She accused them of neglecting her, of mistreating her during childhood, and claimed she didn't want to share them with anyone else. She insisted she should be enough for both of them and that they should disown me. Her jealousy and resentment were on full display. At that moment, I believe my parents finally saw the full extent of her hatred, how much she resented my place in the family. While they tried to calm her, she kept yelling, making wild accusations. In her desperation, she threatened to go to the police and make false reports against them, claiming they neglected her during her formative years. This terrified my parents. They're respected professionals in our community, well-known, trusted. The thought of false accusations ruining their reputation was terrifying. They felt trapped, overwhelmed, and unsure of what to do next. In recent days, Lisa's behavior has only worsened. Now that she knows my parents are talking to me regularly, she's been breaking dishes in anger, throwing furniture, and hiding their car keys, making it impossible for them to go to work. Just tonight, my mother called me in tears after another episode at dinner. Lisa had a huge tantrum, yelling at her because my mother refused to cook for her after a long day at work. She then tore through the house, smashing furniture, and went into her room to blast loud music, so loud that our parents couldn't sleep. The situation is spiraling out of control. It's taking a heavy toll on their mental health, emotionally, physically, and psychologically. I'm genuinely worried about what might happen next. I'd hoped they'd see her true nature by now, but instead, I fear she might pose a real threat to their safety. I can't even go home at the moment because I'm afraid that her rage might escalate further, leading to even more destructive episodes. Update 2. Lisa has now been arrested. And, as many of you predicted, her increasingly dangerous antics finally caught up with her. One night, she attacked our parents with a knife during an intense fight. My parents, terrified, had no choice but to call the police. Officers arrived quickly, and she was taken into custody on charges of assault. The situation forced my parents to face the harsh reality. They had to consider a more permanent solution. They consulted with an attorney who advised them on the legal process of evicting her from their home. They filed a formal eviction notice, clearly stating she had to leave. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary for everyone's safety. They didn't want to press charges, they just wanted her out of their lives. They bailed her out of jail and handed her the eviction notice, with all the legal paperwork explaining exactly when she was to leave and why. Following the law meticulously, they went to court to initiate the eviction process, filing a lawsuit against her. It was heartbreaking for my parents. They were taking their own daughter to court, they felt guilt, sadness, and helplessness. But the court finally issued an order: Lisa must vacate the house. If she refuses, they have the legal right to remove her by force. She's scheduled to be out of the house next week. And, finally, my parents can breathe a sigh of relief, knowing they've taken a step toward regaining their home and peace. It's been a long, exhausting journey, but they're hopeful that once Lisa moves out, life will start to settle. I've stayed in close contact with them throughout this ordeal. I plan to bring them to San Francisco for a few weeks, just to give everyone a break, a chance to relax and breathe. They could definitely use a change of scenery, some time away from Lisa's chaos, and I want to support them as much as I can. Update 3. I've received hundreds of messages in response to my post. It's taken me some time to read through everything, but many of you suggested that we consider having Lisa evaluated for possible mental health issues. The problem is, she's an adult now. We can't force her to get a mental health assessment against her will, especially given her recent violent outbursts. We don't want to push her further away or escalate her aggression. As I mentioned before, my parents flew down to San Francisco to spend some days with me, trying to take a break from the chaos. Yesterday evening, around my cozy dinner table, they opened up with a lot of humility and regret. They admitted they'd been blind to Lisa's true nature for all these years. They begged me for forgiveness, acknowledging their mistakes. They said they never expected Lisa to turn out this way, that they couldn't see the darkness lurking behind her charming facade. My father expressed remorse for ignoring my warnings earlier. He admitted they were so blinded by her innocence that they failed to see her for what she was becoming. Her mother echoed these sentiments, her voice trembling with emotion. She acknowledged how they had failed me, favoring Lisa, dismissing my concerns, and turning a blind eye to her manipulations. They confessed that their favoritism had clouded their judgment, that they always saw Lisa as their miracle, their blessing, something special. And now, after everything, they finally realized the depth of their mistakes. They begged for my forgiveness, apologized sincerely for neglecting me and for the pain I endured. It was a bitter, complex moment. I've always craved acknowledgement from them, and while this wasn't the perfect reconciliation, it was a step forward, an honest admission that brought some clarity to our fractured family. I told them it will take time to rebuild trust, but I'm willing to try. We all agreed to work through this together, to heal from the wounds of the past. For now, I plan to cherish the time I have with my family during their visit, making the most of this rare chance for honest connection. Update 4. As the days passed, my parents and I spent more quality time exploring the vibrant streets of San Francisco, strolling through neighborhoods, enjoying leisurely meals, and simply soaking in each other's company. It's been a long, difficult journey, rebuilding the bonds that had been frayed by years of favoritism, denial, and neglect. I've come to realize that their decision to come here, to seek refuge with me, was not just about distance from Lisa. It was about trying to rebuild the family they nearly lost. They needed a fresh start, a new beginning. And so did I. Since then, we've discussed what to do about Lisa. She's currently staying with a friend, trying to figure out her next steps. We can't just abandon her, despite everything she's done to us. As her parents, my mom and dad still feel a deep sense of responsibility, regardless of how unforgivable her actions seem. They believe her behavior might be rooted in deeper issues. They're planning to explore the possibility of a mental health evaluation, not to punish her, but to understand her better. Of course, since she's an adult, they can't force her to go. They hope she'll choose to seek help voluntarily. They plan to reach out to her once they're back home, to see if she's willing to talk. I've hesitated to contact her myself. She still holds a grudge against me, understandably, and I don't want to make things worse. Given her past aggressive episodes, I've advised my parents to meet her in a public place, somewhere neutral, where she can't act out uncontrollably. Their main goal is for her to see their perspective, most importantly, to realize that everything they've done comes from love and concern. It's not about blame. It's about coming together as a family, addressing the issues that have torn us apart, and trying to find a way forward. This isn't an easy road. But I believe that, with patience and honesty, healing is possible. I want my family to heal, to rebuild trust, and to finally see each other for who we truly are, flawed but hopeful for a better future.